So, welcome to the Grounded Space podcast. Today, we are going to be going into the topic around breathwork and breathing. And what is breathwork from our interpretations, from our perspectives? And how can breathwork be a helpful tool and something that we can really start to become more consciously aware of in our life to make some changes, to really support us with however we're feeling in that moment? And so Anthony, of course, is a breathwork facilitator, and he works with a lot of clients one-on-one, and he's also going to share a lot about, what breathwork is for him and how he can see breathwork as becoming this fastest moving healing modality in the world that you see today. So Anthony, would you like to share a little bit about, what you've been using the breath for in the last couple of years?
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Anthony again. This is the first episode, and we recently did an introduction, both introducing Jacob and myself. And like Jacob said, it's true. Breathwork is the fastest growing modality, not just in Australia but worldwide. And what I believe it to be, it's a healing modality. It's a healing modality where we can choose to lower our stress levels through the day. We can tune in for 2 minutes, whether it's in through the nose, out through the nose, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And every pattern of breath is also related to, can help you with a particular emotion. So you can have a breathing to work with sadness. You can have a breath work to activate the joy in your body. And they're very helpful to come back into the heart. And for me, helping different people all over the world is vital to support clients to have more vitality in their body. And I'm a yoga teacher as well, and so we believe as yogis that the vitality also sits in your spine. The youth is to bring you back to your true nature. And by using different modalities of breath or different styles, you can start to play around with what works for you. And through that, we have, in the program I studied called Pause, we have integrated breath, which is under 8 minutes, and we have meditative practices, which are over 8, which we go into a different level of consciousness. So depending on what you need, you have options there.
Beautiful. And of course, we have breathing outside of, the healing types of practices. We are always breathing. And I hear this a lot. People say, oh, why do we need to focus on breathing? We're already breathing. Like I am breathing. And of course, breathing is always happening. It's an unconscious, automatic response of our body to breathe. But we are not always conscious of our breathing. And so if we're not fully conscious of our breathing may be fast, it may be shallow, it may be upper chest. Our breathing may be through our mouth throughout our day. We may be over breathing throughout our day if we are feeling stressed, if we're feeling anxious, overwhelmed. We could be really breathing that's creating a stress response throughout our day, and we're not aware of this. We're not aware of how our breathing can really impact our mood. Our breathing can impact our heart rate. It can, impact the heat in our body. It can impact our nervous system, whether we're in the parasympathetic nervous system or the sympathetic nervous system. Our breathing can easily start to play into those tolls. And from what I've seen, that if you are feeling a bit stressed, if you are feeling a little bit anxious, that's going to play into your breathing. It's going to cause your breathing to become faster. It's going to cause the breathing to become more rapid and more irregular. And I've also said, on the other hand, that if your breathing becomes fast, it becomes rapid, it becomes irregular, it's going to lead into symptoms like anxiety, like stress, which can cause, many health problems. But of course, if we're looking at breathing day to day compared to breathing in meditation, or when we're coming into the mat and being intentional about needing some healing and we're needing some type of transformation, can you share a little bit about how that can be transformative for us when we are intentional with our breathing, and we're not only breathing, but we might be breathing at a more faster rate and a more activating rate?
Most definitely. And this really starts with how in tune your facilitator is with their body, because we can only take someone through a transformation if we have taken ourselves through that. And even though we're always evolving, there is, in my opinion, a certain level of embodiment that's required to hold space for when you're doing 30 to 45-minute, even longer breathwork sessions. And there's different hand movements where we place on our clients for where there may be blocked energy, so that they can have the emotional release. And it's really important that if we are going through releasing anger, sadness, even joy, that we stop the breathing and allow ourselves to release it. And then if we feel called to go back into the breath as well, we have to understand also that our nervous system has different parts that are trapped from a young age. And then we have the subconscious that has built beliefs from a young age. And so breath work can really help to hold space for those parts and protectors that we run from in our life, and to really meet them with love and tenderness and care. But like I said before, because there's so many people now qualified in breath work, it's important that if you are looking for a facilitator, to really ensure that they have the experience behind them and that they can do it themselves, but they can also hold that energetic capacity.
Beautiful. Because obviously, when I've seen a lot of your breathing techniques, and I've obviously experienced a lot of them firsthand myself, and I'm quite a curious guy, that, and I'm always observing what's going on, what's happening to the body while we are breathing this way. And of course, when we are doing these more intentional, faster breathings, I'm seeing that my body is responding to that. And of course, I am somewhat going into a bit of a heightened state. There's this kind of stress response, but this healthy stress response that's kicking in. And I'm noticing that that's obviously having changes to my body. I can feel myself somewhat even going into a bit of a hyperventilation as well. And it's almost, I'm seeing that there's this ego death that's occurring. Maybe you could share a little bit about when we are breathing that much, obviously there's a lot of oxygen moving through the body, right? And it's really bringing up the pH level. From what you've learned and from what you've seen, how do you think that type of breathing is really helping to release emotion and help us release these types of sadness or anger or things in the past that have been repressed?
Yeah, definitely. Well, like I said before, firstly, it comes down to who is facilitating the group. And then the body has to feel safe. And that for everyone's different on that topic. Like some people, it takes a long time to feel safety because they never have received it. And when the facilitator is guiding you, if this is a one-on-one, for example, again, they're right with you and they're guiding you the whole time, and they're checking if your body can actually cope with what is being presented, and they're making little nuance adjustments to what is happening. But over time, when the safety is developed, what happens is that certain memories may come up that you may have forgotten about in your life. And depending on the level of consciousness you have, is how you will actually interpret that. So if someone's got a lot of trauma or a lot of memory in their body, then it's advised that they don't do those faster breaths at all. But if someone has the awareness that when I'm moving through an emotion and it's fast, then I do stop and I do feel, and I know that when I feel it and I let it go, I detach from it. I'm not really a believer of having 100 people in one class doing the same breath. When we do our workshops, we offer 2 to 3 different styles.
Yeah.
But again, the more practice you have, in my opinion, there's more consciousness going in your body as you're breathing this way, because your body can handle it. There's enough spaciousness in your nervous system to hold that energy, because it's that energy that we have to hold in our life everywhere we go, because the life is very fast paced at that time. So your breath, life, and how you handle the challenges that are presented to you as well.
You there? I think we had some connection things. Been just freezing up a little bit. Yeah, so because obviously it is fascinating, and what we do offer is a lot of different to a lot of breath works out there. You've seen that people get put into a class, they get told to basically breathe as fast as they can, as quick as they can, as much as they can for 45 minutes to 1 hour. And I remember one of the first experiences I had in Bali in a breathwork class was that they told us to breathe, pretty much as we can in through the mouth and fast for a long time. And it was interesting what happened, and it was kind of like this death that was kind of happening in my body, in my mind. But I remember I felt quite high after it, and felt quite connected to the group. But what I did notice very quickly after, I needed time to integrate, and it was like very straining on my body and my mind. And I probably needed a couple of days to just chill out because it was quite intense. So the integration period is big, and if we're not out there in the grassy fields for a few days after it, getting support from people like yourself, who are more trauma informed, who are healers, who who are there to like really know what you're going through and support you. If you were just to go in one of these classes 45 minutes to an hour, and then the next day go back to work, or straight away go into busy traffic, and it's just chaos, you need your nervous system needs time to really come back, doesn't it? Because I've heard you talk about also not you're not wanting to over traumatize the body, because you could say that fast breathing and over breathing is traumatizing for the body. It's inducing the stress response, and the body's thinking it's in danger to some degree. There's this survival mode that's kicking in when you were breathing that fast. It's because if we were in tribes back in the day, we would be breathing that fast if we would come across a lion, or we would have come across some type of danger out there, maybe another threat from another tribe. then that fight or flight response would need to kick in for us to run away or for us to fight, for us to be sharp. So, what we offer obviously is a lot of a shorter, more incremental, and I often hear you say that everyone should be still listening to their own body and breathing how they should be breathing for that day, what is right for them. So can you talk a little bit about how you kind of gauge this, and how does someone know, like, if they should be breathing, like pushing themselves a little bit more, or should they be hanging back a little bit more?
Yeah, I guess with experience and working with the chakras a lot, when people come to me, I sort of gauge how they're feeling in that moment. In a recent workshop we ran, we had one of our participants come about 20 minutes late, and I could see on her face she was really, really tired. And I knew when I placed my hand on her head to greet her, like, hello, how are you? But then I intuitively needed to touch her head. I just knew that she was just going to rest that night. She came to be in the group energy. And I don't know how to scientifically explain that. It's a feeling in my body that I get. It's like a grid. There's like a grid in my body. And someone might come really energized that night, and then when they sit, they feel the energy of the circle, and then they start to feel these amplified emotions coming up. And I guess some people then say, well, what if it's your ego not wanting to give it a go? So it may take practice, because sometimes it's our mind not letting us breathe a certain way because I feel more comfortable just doing long, deep breathing. But again, like, it comes back again, the third time I say this, it comes back to how present and how grounded your facilitator is in offering the space for you, because that's really going to determine their transformation. Like, your nervous system gives your clients the transformation. It's not from the mind, it's from your body. And we have a lot of participants, Jacob, that come to our circles quite regularly. And through that process, they've come to learn how they should breathe that night. And then they'll often give us feedback that, I had to stop at 5 minutes tonight, and I was okay with that.
Yeah.
So it's more of an intuition.
Because I can see where I've been to certain ones, especially that one I was in Bali. There was a little bit of almost competitiveness to who's breathing optimally fast and who's not stopping, and who's making the most noise and things like that. And I could see that, it'd been beneficial to get a little bit of push, because like you said, sometimes people might come in, they're a bit lazy. They don't want to breathe the fast pace, the activating. They don't want to, there could be fear behind it. They could be a bit scared of what may come up, what emotions may come up. They could, be a little bit stressed themselves already, and maybe they just don't require that style of activation. But, I could see where, even myself, sometimes it's helpful to have that motivation and that little nudge. And it could be someone next to you. Like I remember I've done a few, say, sessions where I've had another male next to me, whether it's doing yoga or doing breath work. When I've had another male next to me and he's keeping up, it's kind of helping me to keep up. We're like lifting each other and going, hey, we're going to do this together. And you see one guy is like, all right, I'm lifting up. And then it's kind of creates that other energy for him to lift up as well. So, it's been a journey for me as well to listen to my body and go, okay, I don't need to breathe like everyone else in tonight's circle. Maybe I require to breathe a bit slower tonight, and again, gauging whether that's the resistance from my ego, not wanting to breathe faster, not wanting to activate so that something doesn't get released, or gauging whether that's actually the right thing. That's what my heart's calling in that moment, is to breathe slower. And my ego is the one saying that, no, I need to breathe faster. I need to keep up with the group. I need to do what everyone else is doing. I need to do what my teacher's telling me to do, and not listening to my body or my heart or my intuition that's saying, maybe only breathe for 5 minutes at this pace and then chill out. Maybe that's the best way that you're going to get results from that night, because we assume maybe the faster, the bigger, the most activating is going to be always the best. But it may not be. Maybe the smaller, softer, more gentle approach can be the most healing in that moment for you. Would you say?
Yeah, definitely. It depends on how you show up. It depends on what you're going through during the week. There's many factors. There's so many factors that contribute to that. And all you can really do is show up as you are. And we remind our community that as long as you show up, it doesn't really matter what you do that night, because everyone's doing the work together. Especially if we're doing together, I know this is a separate topic, but if we're doing Kundalini, which does have breath work in it, the perspective with that is that we're all doing the work for you if you can't.
And I've seen that play out a lot, and I've often mentioned, like you were saying, that when people just arrive, just by making the effort to arrive, and they don't have to do anything, just sitting in that energy, it's a container, really. And there's a lot of life force moving, there's a lot of prana moving, there's a lot of positive energy moving. Of course, what we create, we're creating this altar, there's crystal energy, there's Reiki energy, and of course, people are bringing their energy. There's lots of healers, there's lots of light workers, there's lots of high vibrational people that are also coming to the circle. So everyone's bringing their uniqueness and their energy. And it is like coming into this container of positive energy that you're just going to get bathed in. And we've seen some people just come and they'll do some movements to the best of their capability. Of course, because there's a group, the group's doing the movements, I've got to do the movements. So again, there's this motivation that's kicked in because you're in the group. That's why people invest and come. If we were to do this on our own, we've got YouTube, there's plenty of access to things like that, but we won't keep ourselves accountable if we're just going to do it while no one's watching, right? When we're in those environments, it can be very uplifting for someone who doesn't have that motivation or that encouragement to do these types of modalities on their own. And we've seen a lot of people who do come to our monthly mixed circles, there might only be their only practice that they do, the once a month, or when they come to the free meditations, that may be the only time that they're meditating, and it's that container, and it's them choosing that time to be in the group that helps them to go, okay, I'm gonna get involved in this. Everyone else is involved. I'm gonna get involved. I'm not going to be the odd one out and not move like everyone else. And again, of course, if someone's able to physically do the postures that we can hold, which most of the postures we teach, anyone can really do at any age. And then, of course, in yoga, you have variations for older women or for people who are at different health levels or weight levels. There's different variations to different yoga poses. So, it's just about really showing up and being in that space, and that energy is going to really uplift you. And whatever type of breathing, and I get, again, if we're just starting to become conscious of our breathing, whether it's in a meditation or whether it's in our day-to-day, we're really going to start to shift our consciousness and our vibration and have really dramatical changes on our body and our nervous system. And every time I bring my awareness to my breath throughout the day, I'll automatically really starts to slow down. Automatically it'll start to go deeper into the diaphragm. it'll really start to be a lot smoother, and I'll feel that change in my body. So, having that awareness, and, like what we do, obviously, all these modalities that we do are really based on breath when you think about it. And, whether there's movements involved, there's always breath involved. Even Qigong, it's movement, but it's also breath. Qi is breath. So when you look at the words actually translated, Qi means life force or breath, and Gong means practice, work, or movement. So it's the same thing. It's really breath work translated into the words Qigong. So there's different cultures, of course, that have different approaches, but they're all quite similar as well in a way when they work with certain things, different wordings. Obviously, you teach Kundalini yoga, and it's quite a special practice. It's very special. I've seen it pull me out of low states many times. And sometimes there's fast breathings, techniques that are involved in that style of yoga. And one of them, of course, is the breath of fire.
Yes.
Which you'd like to share a little bit about?
Yeah, so the breath of fire is a diaphragmatic breath where we're inhaling and exhaling 3 to 4 breaths as a more experienced practitioner per second. And when we're inhaling, we're pulling the belly out, and when we're exhaling, we're snapping it back to the base of the spine. And it's also said that if you're new to breath of fire, that you place your tongue out and that you pant like a dog. So it sort of sounds like this. Then once you get that flow, you do the same thing but with your nose. So it sounds like this. And of course you can adapt it and make it slower, or usually it's not for too long, particularly if it's a bit of pranayama at the beginning before the kriya to open up the body. We call it the 8th body, the pranic body. We'll use it for about 1 minute to 90 seconds. So it's not too long, but at times it can be up to 3 minutes if in a kriya. And it does create head pressure as well, because you're also releasing toxins, but also esoterically you're also burning karma as well.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Because it's interesting to think when we're breathing faster, and when you look at our life in general, it just seems like we have a certain amount of breaths, and I always contemplated whether sometimes when we go into those activating breath works and they're more fast paced, like, are we speeding up that cycle of life? Maybe are we speeding up the karma to be released?
Well, this is the perspective. So yeah, this is the perspective that we call it the tapas. When you're doing the breath work, there's a heat that's rising through your body. The kundalini is rising, and we're pulling also the perineum at the same time slightly. And we're moving that energy from the animalistic nature, which are in the first 3 chakras, back up to the heart, back up to the crown. But like you said previously, some people do prefer the lower, slower. When I say lower, I don't mean low people. I mean the pace is slower.
The deeper, lower breaths, you probably mean.
Yes, the lower breaths, yeah, as well. Do you do breath of fire yourself?
Yes, when I do Kundalini yoga, which I try and do weekly at the moment, I do the breath of fire. But I've seen that sometimes there's invitations to do that with a lot of exercises as well. And again, coming back to, like, do I do that to fit in with the group, or do I listen to my body? Maybe I need the slower breathing right now for this for this certain posture, or the kriya.
Yeah.
And I do find that it sometimes can have an interestingly energetic response, but then also this heat that builds in the belly, and this somewhat relaxing mode too, but I did notice the importance of keeping it lower as well into that diaphragm area,
Mm.
that there's that heat building.
It's very healing,
Mm.
and it changes the neural pathways of the brain from the negative mind into the positive mind, and to be in the neutral mind on a daily basis. The aim is not to get attached to either end of the emotion.
Yeah, because that type of breath as well, you've got to be careful, of course. If you don't want to be doing that breath while especially if you're driving a vehicle or something. But
Or even if you're a female, you're pregnant or on your cycle. So
yeah,
there are cautions, or if you're extremely anxious, it's not a breath that I would suggest to do.
yeah, exactly right. If you're feeling quite anxious or in that panicky mode, that style of breath could probably even make your panic worse.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wish to add about breath work that comes through for you?
Yeah, one thing in particular when it comes to the word deep breathing, and I think there's a bit of a misinterpretation when people use that word or really interpret that word. And from what I've seen many years ago, when I experienced a lot of anxiety and panic attacks that were quite frequent, I would hear, take a deep breath, just breathe, just breathe. And I would just interpret that take a deep breath was to take a big breath. And often it would be either through my mouth and it'd be up into my chest, and I'd be inhaling as much as I can. And what happened to me that back then, I used to actually make my anxiety worse and my panic even worse. And I was seeing that that's not really how I needed to breathe in that moment. I actually needed to slow down my breathing. I needed to breathe lighter. I needed to breathe in my diaphragm. If anything, I actually needed to breathe less. And it seems quite interesting. Like, why would we need to breathe less to calm our anxiety? But you look at one of the old school paper bag analogies, right? Where they say, oh, you're having a panic attack, put the paper bag over your mouth. And it's like, oh, why is that? What's going on? And of course, when you're holding the paper bag over your mouth, there's less oxygen. So you're breathing out carbon dioxide, but then it's staying in the bag. So when you inhale again, you're breathing back in that carbon dioxide. And so carbon dioxide is very important from what I've been learning lately about the effect of our breathing, that if we don't have as much carbon dioxide in our body, then our body's actually not going to absorb the oxygen as efficiently. And that can lead to overbreathing because our body thinks that we need more, but in fact, we need more CO2. And what I've been seeing, obviously with the word take a deep breath, as I come back to that, is that it's more about breathing deeply down in the belly. It's not about taking a big inhalation. Deep doesn't mean big. Deep means low. If you think about jumping in the water, you go into the water, and when you go deep down, you're going down. Deeper you go, the lower you go. So really the true meaning of the yogis when they said take a deep breath is deep, which means down. It means diaphragmatic. It doesn't mean take a full inhalation up and breathe, inhale as much as you can. It's not what it really means. And I think a lot of people would gain a lot of help from this, because I see it in yoga classes, I see it in meditation classes, I see it with doctors telling patients to take a deep breath who are experiencing anxiety, and I hear it all the time. It's like they're just taking this massive inhalation and they're getting dizzy, they feel like fainting, and it's actually making their anxiety a lot worse. So yeah, that's something I'd like to add, that deep breathing means low breathing, not big breathing, and not taking a big inhalation. The true term was to use the diaphragm when someone says take a deep breath.
And it can help to use numbers as well. So in for 4, out for 8, or in for 3, out for 6. And that can gauge how low you breathe into the belly as well.
Yeah, of course, if we're slowing down our breathing, then that's going to, slow down the breath rate per minute, which will lead to eventually helping you to gauge more of the diaphragm area. But perhaps we could talk about the breath rate per minute in another episode, and how that even links to longevity and how long we're going to live. And there's this direct link that if you're breathing slower throughout your everyday, your average breath rate per minute is lower, and there's a link between that and how long you're going to live.
I would agree with that.
And I guess if you were to think about breathing more slower, you would think someone's more calm throughout their day. If their breath is a little bit more relaxed, that would mean that they're in a calm state. They're more zen. They're more in the parasympathetic nervous system. So if there's someone who's breathing more breaths per minute, you would assume that they're more in a stress response. They're more in the sympathetic nervous system. And, we know when we stay in that leads to chronic stress, which is a 90% cause of most health issues these days. Having stress. But we can leave, go into other avenues of the breath in another episode. I think we can. Was there anything else you would like to share based on what we're just sharing about the deep breath? And
Just it's always experimenting to where you are in the moment. And I think we're so used to, as a society, being told what to do by someone outside of us and thinking that they know more than us. I think it's important to learn about your body and what it needs in each moment. So it's helpful to have someone guide you and take you on a deep journey to hold the space. But then you have the discernment to go, is that something I want to do regularly? And for most people, they don't know, because as a collective, we've lost our power. And, this is a topic that can go on, but we'll just sort of leave it there for that. So we've lost our power and we're reconnecting now back to the truth.
Because it can be helpful to get some advice. It's like,
absolutely,
how should I be breathing? And getting those biomechanical support, like really, how should I be breathing? Where in the body? How low? How slow? What happens?
Yeah, and just to add, I do quite a bit of body work now with people, and I aim to release really deep emotions from the body. And, it's amazing what happens, what we can manifest when we start to let go of, particularly around that solar plex area where all our self-worth and self-belief live. And we massage into that and really find stuck life force. And when we free that up, we're able to breathe better. We're able to breathe for longer periods as well, like in those breathwork sessions. Would you agree with that? Have you felt?
Yeah, I guess there's deeper contexts. To go into it when it comes to functional breathing and being able to take a fuller, deeper breath. There's lots of avenues to take it, and for sure, if you have a built up amount of emotion in those stomach areas that gets stored in the body through memories and time, of course having that being released will free up the breath
Space.
and free up space in your body for sure. But yeah, many avenues we can take it. So thank you for listening today to the Grounded Space podcast, and we hope you enjoyed today's listen, and we hope that you can take something from it. And again, if you don't, it's okay, leave it on the bookshelf and you can come back to it another time. So Wishing you a warm and open-hearted day, and much love and many thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.